I now give the floor to the permanent representative of Croatia.
Distinguished heads of states, distinguished ministers, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. The history of mankind is not only the history of advancement, development, humanism, scientific discoveries, and artistic masterpieces, but also the history of wars, crimes, conflicts, and atrocities. Seldom were they punished. Moreover, occasional punishment came only in the form of retaliation or retribution. This practice went on for millennia, causing even repeating vicious cycle of vengeance and grief. Recent past saw the escalation of such evil acts, both in gravity and scale. But for the first time in history, major parts of mankind, embodied in what we call the international community, decided to act. Almost 68 years ago, international criminal justice was embodied in the form of Nuremberg and Tokyo processes. We may say that there were imperfections, but the clearly demonstrated will to prosecute and punish those crimes, led by the sense of justice and moral responsibility, significantly outweighed possible deficiencies. Justice delivered for those crimes could not bring the victims back to life, but it did help us reveal and face the truth, bring notorious mass murderers to justice, and heal wounds of the ones left behind. Since mid-20th century, the international community proudly stands behind the vision of the world where the most heinous crimes cannot and will not go unpunished. In the following years, the significant strengthening of international humanitarian law, especially through the Geneva Conventions and their additional protocols, substantially contributed to confirming and broadening the notions of fairness, humanity, and responsibility in armed conflicts, and stressed the need for their consistent application. Those most important international agreements were a clear expression of the view that the rule of law should be upheld and observed in all times. However, a real breakthrough in the field of the international criminal justice was achieved with the establishment of the International Criminal Court for former Yugoslavia in 1993, and a year later, the one for Rwanda. Those two institutions, whose jurisprudential and other contribution to international criminal justice could not be overemphasized, were followed by the establishment of other, more specific tribunals, such as Special Tribunal for Sierra Leone, extraordinary chambers in the courts of Cambodia, and Special Tribunal for Lebanon. Yet all those tribunals were temporary, ad hoc tribunals, created for a concrete situation or country. Their achievements could have been only exposed, and their preventive role was limited. The international community needed something more. We needed a permanent and universal court in charge for the prosecution of the most serious breaches of international humanitarian law, which would act in all those cases where national jurisdictions are unable or unwilling to perform. The establishment of the International Criminal Court in 1998 and entry into force of its statute in 2002 could undoubtedly be regarded as one of the most important civilizational achievements of the last century, and as Secretary General pointed out, and I quote, the beginning of the new era of accountability. Mr. President, we are aware that with the mentioned achievements, which are remarkable in a relatively short period of time, the work has only begun. What has been achieved is, in fact, the institution setting. In that regard, both the ad hoc criminal tribunals, which will close their doors soon, and the ICC, which remains as a permanent court, should not be perceived as ends in themselves. Their basic long-term task is clear: by bringing justice to once bitter enemies, to also restore sustainable peace. This motive led my country, Croatia, to wholeheartedly support the idea of the establishment of the International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia in 1993. Being a victim of aggression, Croatia realized that international engagement, including through the establishment of the International Criminal Tribunal, would give us the best opportunity to seek justice and make certain that the perpetrators of many serious violations of international humanitarian law would meet their well-deserved fate. Although my country was not always necessarily pleased with its procedures, rulings, or decisions, it has at all times cooperated with the ICTY to the best of its abilities, respected its decisions, and never challenged them outside the established procedure. This is exactly what we expect from everybody else, particularly from the countries with which the tribunal is directly involved. Nothing more and nothing less. Responsible members of international communities have no other option. Mr. President, the title of today's debate suggests that we should examine whether international criminal justice contributes to reconciliation, and if so, in what way. Too often have we seen that neither justice without peace nor peace without justice are sustainable. Ultimately, the impact of the tribunals on the ground is their main raison d'etre, and what really counts at the end. Establishing individual accountability based on the judicially verified facts is a vital tool in the process of reconciliation. The process of reconciliation cannot be carried out by international tribunals themselves. Their work and decisions can lay foundations for it. It takes for the critical portion of a society to recognize the facts and to start questioning whether something they did or supported was right. National political leadership in this respect is crucial. Political leaders can play a very positive but also a negative role. Other stakeholders, governmental and non-governmental, should also lend their full support. In that vein, Mr. President, today's open debate could have contributed to that goal if it was balanced and prepared in an objective, dispassionate and open-minded manner. We regret that many elements in the preparation and organization of this debate, including non-transparency as well as the selection of the panelists, some of them even with very questionable ethical and professional profiles, lead us to a conclusion that truth, justice and reconciliation were not the values for which this debate was organized. In that respect, Mr. President, and that's my final point, let me say that some observations, and not just few, made here today by the President of the Republic of Serbia, Mr. Tomislav Nikolic, do not correspond with the facts, and we cannot but disagree with them. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I now give the floor to the Charge d'Affaires